What's up guys? Amanda is the name, Garage Gym Reviews is the game, and today I am going to review one of the most controversial shoes in CrossFit, and that is we get some help over here. Okay, so now that we got that figured out, today I'm going to be reviewing all of the NOBULL training shoes. We've got the original NOBULL Trainers, the NOBULL Lifters, the NOBULL Runners, and the brand new Trainer Plus that I've been wearing for a few weeks now. All in all, I've been wearing NOBULLs for 4+ years, back when they were kind of a no-name brand. So I'm going to go into the nitty-gritty of NOBULL and help you decide if the most controversial CrossFit shoe is for you. First, I'm going to focus on these, my favorite pair of NOBULLs. We'll worry about those later. These are the original trainers. They're super beat up. You can see I've used them for everything from rope climbs. The logo here is all faded out because I've been using them for so long. And honestly, everyone tells me they still look brand new. That right there is the first pro to NOBULLs that I've noticed over the years. They stay looking good. So if you are into fitness and also fashion, we like NOBULL. That aside, they are really a solid training shoe if you want a stable platform. There are kind of two types of people who love NOBULL trainers, that's me, and people who hate NOBULL trainers and just refuse to wear them because they're so flat and stable. So you can kind of see the sole is flexible, but it's super flat. There's not very much arch support in here, but that gives you such a solid, stable base for things like squats, snatches, deadlifts. If you're ever in a Metcon where you have a barbell and you're cycling the weight super fast, this is the kind of shoe you want, because you don't want a super thick rounded sole that's going to have you rocking back and forth, messing up your stability. These ones in particular are my favorite, the high tops, because they're so good for rope climbs. If you have done rope climbs before, you know you can get those nasty rope burns going up and down your shins, kind of on your ankles, and this will guard you. No matter what your rope climb style is, you won't end up with that rope burn on your ankles. So those are all of the top things that I love about NOBULL trainers. Circling back around to the style, I love this monochromatic look compared to something like the Nanos or the Metcons that have a lot of patterns and bright colors, and a lot of people hate that the NOBULLs are so monochromatic. They do have some that have patterns, they have floral patterns and whatever, but still the shoe is very simple. I think someone on our team likes to call them military slippers. The looks are not for everyone. And then also the super flat sole, that's one of the things I love about this shoe, but it's one of the things that other people hate. There's not much arch support, which is good for certain movements, bad for others. I personally wouldn't even wear these for, a running heavy workout, and definitely not if I'm just going out to go for a run. These would not be my shoe of choice for that. And then a lot of people also say that NOBULLs aren't very cushioned, and they're not. And that's why NOBULL created these trainers. They were really creative with the naming. They're called Trainer Plus. They do address pretty much every single concern that people had with the previous generation of trainers. You can tell just by looking at them next to each other that the soles are completely different. So we went from a minimal, probably about a 1/2 inch width sole here to a full inch. This shoe is chunky. It's made out of a different material, so we have more compression here, which addresses the issue of the flatness that people always say is the reason why they don't like NOBULLs. There's also more arch support in these. There's more contour in the shoe, which makes them a bit more comfortable than this flat, more straighter shoe on the previous version of the trainer. Other than that though, the Trainer Plus is pretty similar. We've got this whole different bottom portion of the shoe here with some thicker lugs, but the upper is the same. So these have the same texture, nice waterproof, which is really great. Very similar shoe, but it does address the concerns that people had with the prior generation of NOBULLs. If you wanted to be a NOBULL fan, but you kind of were they're just not quite comfortable enough for me, then the Trainer Plus might be your answer to that. Two of the biggest changes between the Trainer Plus and the trainer are, one, the super aggressive lug pattern they have on the outsole here. These lugs, they look about 1/8 of an inch maybe deep, which is super deep for an outsole of a shoe. That means traction is crazy. And the reason NOBULL did this is primarily a CrossFit shoe, although you can wear them for any type of training. But the reason NOBULL made this lug pattern on the Trainer Plus is for rope climbs. Here on the inside, the lug pattern continues, which is not something you normally see, which means these will like stick. They'll be sticky on the rope when you're going up and down. So no worries about like your shoes slipping through the rope and losing your footing, which is definitely a fear for all of us amateur CrossFitters out there like myself. And then just in general on gym floors, like just sticky. So box jumps, double unders, whatever, like you'll feel that traction more than you will with this lug pattern on the old Trainer, which is still good, but this is objectively better. And then the second big difference is the midsole. So the new midsole on the Trainer Plus is EVA foam, which is the same kind of foam that's in the midsole of most running shoes, which means that there's a lot more compression in the NOBULL Trainer Plus compared to the regular NOBULL Trainer. I've worn these shoes for a handful of workouts and then just like around town. And there's already some permanent compression in the midsole, which is not great. So I will definitely be keeping an eye on that as I wear them more. Maybe even taking a tape measure or something to the shoe to see if it does have any permanent compression over time. It's definitely something to be aware of. All in all, pretty similar shoe. There are some specific uses that I think makes one better than the other in certain scenarios. So if you're doing a lot of squatting, deadlifting, like just general weightlifting type movements, I would recommend these over the Trainer Plus because they are more stable. They don't have compression, which reduces the amount of wobble that you might feel under a heavy barbell. These ones, however, are great if you need shock absorption in any way whatsoever. So if you're doing box jumps, burpees, double unders, running, or even just being outside, the combination of the additional traction and the additional cushion are going to be lifesavers for the ankles and the knees. Okay, so now we're done with the trainers. These are probably the most popular NOBULL shoe, and we're going to move into some less popular NOBULLs, the runners and the lifters. Okay, so we have the NOBULL lifters here and the NOBULL runners here. These aren't as well known as the trainers, but still pretty popular in the fitness world. I'm gonna talk about the runners first. So right off the bat, I will tell you, I'm currently training for a triathlon and I would not wear these. They're nice shoes, I'll lead with that. They look cool, they're fun, people get a lot of compliments on them, but they're not super secure. This is the knit runner specifically. They have a couple of other models, but they don't hold your foot in place super well unless you tighten the laces like uncomfortably tight. And then they have this sock-like little opening here, which personally I feel is not as secure as some running shoes that have a more firm opening for the foot here. So despite the less than ideal upper, NOBULL runners actually do have a rather impressive midsole. They're made of something called Phylon, which is a treated and molded version of EVA foam. And EVA foam is what's used in pretty much every running shoe that you could ever find, except the normal way that EVA is used is like it's a big sheet and then the midsole of the shoe is like cut out of it. So they take pellets of EVA and they compress them and then they temperature treat them and then they mold them into this pretty little wavy shape that you see here. And these are actually Coop's runners. Did I mention that they smell? And he's had these since the runners came out. He did a review on these, what, 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago. According to Coop, who wears these all year round for multiple activities, they feel like they did on day one. That goes to show that this special type of EVA doesn't compress like regular running shoes. And I've been through pairs and pairs and pairs of running shoes as someone who used to be a cross-country runner and trained for half marathons. Running shoes do compress pretty quickly. If you're logging a lot of miles in them, you're gonna have to replace them every year, or if you're like an ultra runner, every 6 months. So something like the NOBULL runner with that treated EVA might be a better option for you if you find yourself just like constantly going through running shoe after running shoe and spending hundreds of dollars a year on them. Finally, we have the outsole. Kind of similar to the NOBULL trainers, the lugs on the NOBULL runners are pretty deep, which means that they'll have really good traction no matter what kind of surface you're on. So whether you're on trails, pavement, wet pavement, whatever you're on, you should feel pretty sticky in these shoes as you go along your run or your walk or whatever you're doing in them. They've been worn for many, many miles. The outsole is still looking really, really good. Sometimes in running shoes, you'll see like the outside of where the ball of your foot is will wear faster, and that's not the case here. Of course, that can always have a little bit to do with like your gait, but in a lot of cases, it is the shoe itself just wearing unevenly. So I love to see that the lugs on the NOBULL runners are still looking good after several years of consistent use. All right, and lastly, I'm gonna go over the NOBULL lifters. So just by looking at them here, you can see that fashion, if you wanna call it that, was the name of the game when NOBULL was creating their lifters. They're very vintage. They kind of look like men's dress shoes, if I'm being honest, especially with this like brown perforated leather. You love it or you hate it. Not a fan personally.
Hate it.
I mean, that's just all gonna be about personal preference. Like this looks like old school lifting shoe that had, you know, wooden heels, but these in fact have stacked leather heels. It looks like wood, but it's not. It is stacked leather, so if you actually look really closely, you can see the layers here, and then you have the rubber outsole on the bottom. Speaking of the stacked leather heel here, one of the most important components of a lifting shoe is the heel to toe drop. The heel to toe drop is so important on a lifting shoe because it kind of dictates how well you can receive a snatch or the bottom of a power clean and how stable you're gonna be there in that position. And so the NOBULL lifters have a heel to toe drop of 18.5 millimeters, which is about a 3/4 of an inch. It's exactly 0.72, so just under 3/4 of an inch. So that's about average for weightlifting enthusiast is gonna buy. There are some on the smaller end, like I personally prefer a more hybrid shoe that's about 1/2 an inch because I like to wear them in CrossFit WODs sometimes. So I like to be able to do other stuff in my lifters, but still have that added stability. So this is gonna be a little too high for that for most people. Like you're probably not gonna wanna go from squats to burpees in these, but that 3/4 of an inch height will be really helpful for receiving a deep squat and, you know, the snatch or the clean and jerk. So all in all, these will do the trick. They didn't make it onto our list of the top weightlifting shoes, which we do have a full in-depth guide to the best weightlifting shoes. Overall, they're just not our favorites, but like they will get the trick done. They'll help you with that stability that you need. But most people who are buying these are people who are just already NOBULL fans. Okay, so there you have it. If you're interested in learning more about various NOBULL shoes, we do have a bunch of reviews and roundups on shoes, which you can find in the links below the like button. But we want to know what you think. Are you team NOBULL or are you team I hate NOBULL? Let us know in the comments. Amanda's the name, Garage Gym Reviews is the game. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Coop, can I do the snap?